call, please, Tracy.
Okay. Director Boyd,
Here.
Director Decker,
Present.
Director Harvey,
Here.
Director Loman,
Here.
Director Slater Carter.
Online.
All right. So all present and accounted for. President's statement, I'd like to just observe this month, 6.32 inches of rain so far. I'm not psychic or anything. That's on our website at mwsd.montara.org. Good lot of rain. It's a big help on the year. We're at 14.84 inches. An average year has 32. So it's good that we have it. We got more to go. We're still in a big drought. We appreciate everyone being water wise and conserving. Let's keep it up. Great to represent an agency that has a good solid water supply and a community that takes it very seriously. So with that, let's go on to the rest of the agenda, which I have now lost because I was looking at water data.
Well, I will say that we've had more rain this year than we did in 2019 for the whole water year. So things are looking better. And we are within a few hundredths of an inch of where we were last year. So we are essentially close to halfway, which would be to normal. So we're still not doing swimmingly, as one would say, but
A pun? Is that a pun?
no, there's snow up here. And I think the ocean is probably cold too. But with any luck, I mean, we had some amazingly heavy storms in the last little while.
Well, we'll take that as our first public comment. Do we have any other comments for items not on the agenda? I see Clemens and I see Rick. Let's go Clemens and then Rick.
Yeah, so I would like to request an emergency item to be added to this agenda that allows us to talk about the storm, the Monday's situation. We did have a sanitary sewer overflow, and we have taken action, and we would like to report about what we did and what we want to do in the future. And we also would like to include approval of funds for the emergency response.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Tracy, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Clemens, where would you like to put that in the agenda?
I think it's probably best if we get this out of the way early on and hear it right at the beginning.
I
Okay.
noticed on the agenda, Clemens, that item number 2 said potential action concerning, and then there was nothing else. So maybe we should just do it there.
Okay, I gotta look at that.
That would be after the audit.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it got truncated. Well, let's hear this item first, but first let's finish up oral comments for things not on the agenda. So Rick.
Oh, yes. I see what
I'll have a whole bunch more stuff under LAFCO, but in reading the papers yesterday and today about, I don't actually read the papers, it's the online version. It's a euphemism. California is talking about, because of the drought, they want to put in a new reservoir. Normally, this wouldn't be much of a problem. It says all reservoirs are created by either snow runoff, rain. It fills up when it rains. This is the first big reservoir that won't be that way. The plan, if approved, is to take water out of the Sacramento River and fill this reservoir. The projections are this would possibly kill off the salmon population. There are massive agreements with Native American tribes who this is their job and this is their livelihood. So I don't remember the name of the reservoir. It's some silly offbeat name. But I would like to ask if we have access to, because again, it will be built here to ship to Southern California. I'd be interested in if we can gather per capita usage averages for districts or LAFCOs or whatever in Southern California. What is the average per capita consumption? And compare that to Northern California consumption to say we're willing to look at this as soon as Southern California quits taking all of our water and watering their lawns and pools and stuff like that. So that's just my comment. We can't debate that or anything, but I wanted to advise people another water theft is potentially about to occur. So more good news.
Okay, do we have, thank you, Rick. Do we have any other comments not on the agenda? If not, let's go to new business item 0, the emergency consideration of the Monday situation. Clemens?
Yeah, thank you very much. So we had first a larger storm from Sunday night to Monday. And it was a decent amount of rainfall, 5 inches plus around 5 inches along this storm. However, I have to say that the rainfall rates were probably locally very different. So I think we even saw, at the Alta Vista site, rainfall rates of about 0.25 inches per hour. But I mean, that's a good rate. But I think we had locally even, just a half a mile away or so, even higher rainfall rates. We saw difficulties with the hard date pump station already in the November storm that really dumped a lot more water onto the ground. And Sam spent that night using the Vector truck already, taking out sewage and driving it up to the next manhole. And so they did that during this storm again. But despite their efforts, there was an overflow that was discovered, so a sanitary sewer overflow. And that unfortunately was right next to Montara Creek, so it went into the creek, and therefore it's a Category 1 overflow. So we're working right now with SAM staff on, assessing what this really means, volume-wise, how this all happened, when this started, and so on, when it stopped. So we're looking at all the information and are putting this right now together. Our first response here is, of course, to avoid something like this going forward. So we immediately ordered a trailer-mounted diesel pump that was brought on site already on Tuesday with some long hose, 700 feet of hose that essentially can be laid out all the way up to George Street. And by today, we've made real progress on this and almost completed that project in the sense that we actually asked Andrini to trench across the street and lay the hose properly so that it can be plated and left there for, let's say, 1 to 3 months or so if needed. There's some, so we also actually for yesterday's storm had A1 out, another septic company that was able to help Sam and pump out during last night's storm. And for us right now, there is a number of things to do in the very short time and in the medium, with some medium outlook. And then finally, also, we have to put an end solution in place. First of all, I want to say that, we saw these difficulties in the storm in October. And also immediately, there was a firm that asked to come out and essentially assess the pump station. We understand that report, unfortunately, hasn't been completed yet. So it turns out the pumps are not good anymore. There are difficulties replacing the same pumps. We think with the new situation, with the new rainfalls that we're seeing, also with potentially adding a number of new connections in that basin, the station may be not adequate at this time to serve this area. So we're looking at taking some significant action going forward here. So I'm going to hand this over in a short while to Pippin for a little bit more fuller report on what it is that we're actually looking to do. But ultimately, we pretty much already spent $15,000 roughly on the immediate action. And we're looking for an authorization tonight from the board to spend up to $140,000 to be able to order immediately pumps and equipment that will take quite some time to really show up here, so that we're prepared to face any other storm that may come. In the long run, we understand that the pump station needs to be rehabilitated, and I think that's going to be a completely different cost. And I'll let Pippin to speak to the costs and how they are comprised of. So there is one other item that we have been considering, and that is also immediately asking for necessary equipment that could be used in case something else, similar situation happens at any other pump station in Montara. It's not the first time that we ran into this. And while Sam was on site, Sam already worked the whole night, and the entire coast side was under this situation. So Sam had to react to spills in Half Moon Bay, for example, and was really short-staffed, wasn't able to respond simply because there was not enough equipment and not enough staff on site accordingly. So we're thinking about also looking at purchasing equipment that could be used in Montara to respond to such a situation. So we have a quote right now that we believe that we could spend up to $60,000 more to get a pump that could handle such a situation. But we're also investigating if there isn't a solution that includes the water side, where we're essentially looking at a vacuum trailer that could help for leak excavations and clean outs of vessels and many more things on the water side. That would be somewhat more expensive, but the cost would be shared between water and sewer. So I'm going to hand it over to Pippin for a report on this, but ultimately the action that we would like to actually ask for is adopt a resolution that can be prepared by our legal counsel to essentially spend up to $140,000 for the emergency repairs. Pippin.
Thank you, Clemens. And I see Tim has joined us tonight as well. Thank you, Tim, for your staff's hard work. This has been, a lot of these emergency responses we talk about and plan with Sam are about individual station failures. And when those occur, Sam's always able to respond. But kind of like we had with the PSPS, is these series of storms we've had since October now have been of quite a high intensity. To have only 2 or 3 storms have equal the rainfall of whole half a year that we would see in the past. The intensity is coming in quite heavily. And so, as Clemens mentioned, the equipment, we had bodies available, but we didn't always have equipment. Montara had backup staff available, but again, we didn't have access to the right equipment. And calling for rental equipment all over the state. Many other districts are stocking up, if you will, or either needing emergency response pumps for SSOs or having them in place as redundancy. So there's very little available in the rental market right now. And to purchase equipment and replacement parts is weeks, months out often. 30 weeks is a common response right now, 20 to 30 weeks. So as Clement pointed out, the pump station itself was built approximately 1983 or so. And so the pumps that are in there are of a fairly antiquated design. Just to get the rebuild parts, Flight is telling us they have to order them, make them in Sweden and send them. So it's almost 3 months just to get the existing pumps rebuilt. But as Clemens pointed out, the pumps themselves, forward-looking, don't have the highest dynamic pumping capability for these peak events. And the number of fixture units in that vicinity is already increasing over the last few years. And with the new state laws, we expect further increases with second units and additional new constructions of a few lots that still remain out there. So we are in conversations with Flight, the pump manufacturer, to size a bit larger pump that's more suitable for the range of flows, handles grit better, and can handle peak dynamic flows on a single pump. Right now, the pump station is designed to handle the peak flows with both pumps running. So we don't have the redundancy. And in this case, if one of the pump gets plugged up a little bit, which is part of what happened in this situation, then we can't hit that peak capacity. So we want to redesign the station so a single pump can handle peak capacity and then be able to have redundancy. The cost of these pumps to purchase are in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000 a piece, plus various fittings and accoutrements that go with them. Because the lead time is quite long, even in our longer term solution to make a repair, to do a pump station design and get it out to bid for more substantial repairs, we recommend fast tracking as soon as we get the design done with Flight and ordering the pumps and owner furnishing them ahead of time to get a strong lead, advantage on that lead time. Additionally, if we can get one of those pumps in before the pump station design is bid, we could actually likely drop one into a manhole next to the pump station and have like a jockey pump with a second panel hookup that would allow us to have additional firm capacity. And what we would hope to do would be to cut into the existing force main and allow that pump to be kind of brought in with a T, and then we could take the portable pump off rent and have it kind of our own pump, which could then be used in the future as the pump station's further rebuilt. So the immediate steps, as Clemens, it's pointed out, getting this supplemental pump capacity installed and trenched under the street so cars can drive over the hose. That'll help handle peak events, or if the pump station becomes plugged with grid again or something like that, that it can turn on and provide supplemental pumping. Then part two would be if we can get these purchase these pumps and have them come in, we could tie them into the force main, use one of them in a manhole to give us some supplemental pumping while we have a redesign project out to bid. And then, hopefully in the spring, then we could get under construction and actually rehabilitate the station. So the costs are significant. Trying to minimize and utilize equipment we have now. It's a tough situation because the existing pumps, there just aren't spares available. And so, even working with pump repairs, it's not a type of a pump we can just get another one easily. And if we did, we'd be kind of buying an unusual piece of equipment for $15,000 or $20,000 that we'd only be using for 3 or 4 months. So it doesn't make sense. The implementation and getting the portable pump on site is about a $6,000 a month rental expense. If we can get that connected, we have Andrini set up to pothole down and find the force main, and we could potentially connect even that trailer mounted pump into the force main, and we could take the hose off rent, use our own pipe. In doing that, we could save several $1,000s a month. The implementation, as I mentioned, purchasing 2 new pumps in advance is going to be probably around $60,000. But we feel it's pretty vital to get those newer design pumps on order as soon as we can because of the lead time. Stepwise, there could be some costs with Calcon, maybe $15,000 or $20,000 to get some sub panels connected and try to get that supplemental pump hooked up as an interim solution. What Clemens mentioned on the Vector trailer option compared to buying a portable pump, because the portable pumps all have to meet California Tier 4 final diesel engine pollution, low pollution engine technology. These portable pumps are between $45,000 and $65,000, so they're not a small item to purchase. And the disadvantage with buying a portable pump, the advantage is it does one thing really well, it pumps. The disadvantage is it only does one thing, and most of the year it sits there and doesn't get much use. So the advantage of spending perhaps twice the money, maybe about $150,000 in the future, short-term future, maybe after the new year, to buy a Vector trailer rig, it would be something much more versatile that could be used not just in emergency cases, but could actually be repurposed or purpose used for both the water and sewer maintenance, and something that would be continually on a year-round basis be able to provide increased benefits to the district. For example, small spot repairs could be excavated with like an electric jackhammer and then vacuum up the debris and be able to do precision holes to make small leak repairs. So that's kind of the overall summary on what the individual elements that we're looking at cost. And there's a bit of a phased approach. Because of the urgency, we need to get some additional capacity in now and then work towards making the station a little bit more independent while, without having to have that long-term rental cost while we're designing the updated pumping capacity. So I guess that's about what covers it for me. There's some other, the other big hang-up could be if we can get the capacity we need within the existing PG&E power delivery. We have 100 amp service out there. We're right at the limit. We believe we can get the capacity we need at 100 amps. But if after going through the design with SHAPE, they're recommending more than 100 amps, then we have one additional step, which is a PG&E application and a request for a power service increase. We time-wise, we would like to avoid that because that would add an additional 3 months at least to the project time-wise. So we're hoping we can get the capacity we need without having to change the PG&E service.
So budget-wise, what is the timeline? What do you need when?
Well, we would need the $140,000 pretty quickly to be able to pay Andrini to finish the existing pump implementation, dig up the force main and start preparing the connection for permanent cross connection to the force main for either this diesel pump, and potentially for the supplemental electric pump if we were to put that in one of our nearby manholes. And there'll be some Calcon electrical integration costs that would come with that. And then the big expense would be getting those correct pumps ordered in advance as soon as we have the design here. Hopefully before the holidays or immediately after, but those pumps are going to be, probably $25,000 to $30,000 a piece by the time we buy the pumps and the cords and the mounting equipment that goes with them.
Why is Andrini $140,000?
No, it's all those components together are that.
Is that
Pumps
including
alone,
the
the pumps alone are $60,000. And the Andrini cost immediately, is going to be, they've already paid $2,500 today for the encroachment permit, for example, and they're going to be about $15,000 or $20,000. We have to repave the road when we're done, but for the emergency, we have to dig it up. We have plates on rent.
So now
Yeah.
I have $80,000. How do we get to 140?
There's going to be $15,000 at least of my services to cover the time. Do you have the breakdown I sent you, Clemens, in front of you?
Yes, absolutely. So we're looking at what we currently pretty much already spending is the SAM response. That's some overtime that's involved. The A1 rental comes up to $15,000. We're looking at the rental portable pump and hose at $6,000, most likely around 3 months. So that comes up to $18,000. We're looking at parts to try to hook to the existing force main to create a high capacity bypass point of $15,000. The purchase of 2 4-inch flight pumps with a longer delivery time, $60,000. As Pippin mentioned, there is a temporary electrical panel required to run those pumps at $15,000. And then some engineering support at around $15,000. So that should add up to around $140,000.
Which of those was Calcon?
That is the temporary electrical install, $15,000.
Okay.
So that doesn't include the emergency equipment that we're asking for additionally. We would look at $65,000 for a portable pump, or we have to investigate that a little better, but around $140,000 for a trailer vac. We would most likely bring that item back in January after we have a bit more clarity on what it is.
So that would be an additional 205, roughly.
Correct. Yeah. That's
If
how
we
it's
bought both,
together.
yeah.
All together.
If we bought both, the one comment we have, to make, and I think Clemens pointed out, and I did, and Tim's here, he can answer it as well. But in the past, there have been responses where Sam's brought, not just their Vector trucks, but they have trailer mounted pumps as well. But for anyone that watched the SAM meeting on Monday, those pumps were running full steam ahead at the treatment plant, keeping the treatment plant righted. keeping that ship righted. So that equipment was not available because this event hit the entire coast side so broadly. There just wasn't enough backup emergency equipment on the coast to be used at all the places that might have needed it. So
So the question is then, why didn't Sam buy additional equipment so as to be able to help us?
well, I can't answer for the SAM board. This is a Montara discussion, and I would, I know those conversations have happened in the past, but it hasn't rained like this for 2 or 3 years, and so that's something that needs to be revisited with SAM. But we're looking at the immediate need of handling the district's emergency response and mitigating future risk. Considering we have 23 pump stations, we have the highest risk of the 3-member agencies. So we encourage the board to consider these options, at least the $140,000 to get us going, and then we can come back after the new year with the additional items and provide more detail.
And a brief correction, Scott, we would buy either the pump at around $60,000. That could serve only the sewer system, or a vac truck that could be utilized on the water side as well as on the sewer side. And it would have the additional benefit that our water staff would be trained on it and could essentially respond and aid SAM staff if we see a similar situation.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Rick, I see your hand, and then Catherine.
Yeah, and maybe Tim can jump in here too, but it's my understanding that since we had the additional capacity on the wet weather project and the Walker tanks and all the other preliminary stuff we've got, that we had just enough time to save the SAM plant. And once again, we came close, but all that prior work we had done helped. It was my impression from watching the videos that the Half Moon Bay overflows were just too much water in the pipes. It just can't handle that much water. Maybe Tim can jump in here on that. But if we improve all of our pumps, and let's say Half Moon Bay adds some pumps too, and we all pump the water to the SAM plant faster and faster and faster, what's that going to do to the SAM plant? Can the SAM plant, under these bizarre circumstances we've had, handle everything if we, shove it down the pipes? So,
At the risk of repeating ourselves, unfortunately, there are other member agencies on the SAM board who don't take quite such a forward-looking approach to solving problems. And the SAM plant was flooded. There was a foot, my guess, of water in some of the buildings. So when Clemens is talking about keeping the SAM plant, or Pippin was talking about keeping the SAM plant righted, it was keeping it from being majorly flooded. It would be interesting to know how much flooding there was in Half Moon Bay. And so I will go on more of that when we get to the SAM report. But this board has always taken a look of, all right, what was the problem and how can we solve it in the best fashion so we don't have this problem in the future? And I agree with Peter, I don't want to spend the money now, but I can tell you the economic numbers I'm looking at on production and interest rates and everything else. We better find a way to take care of our needs for the future. The SAM plant is, the SAM board is struggling right now, and Rick and I are in one taking one side, just to solve a non-domestic waste control source problem that the other two agencies don't think is particularly significant. And that's one where our permit and other things are at risk. So asking them to take care of a problem of buying equipment that might be needed for Montara, but not in El Granada, I don't think we'd get the yes votes. And I know we wouldn't get them from Half Moon Bay. It does speak to why being self-reliant is in the long run more important, taking what benefits we can from the JPA, but being as self-reliant as we can in the meantime, or forever.
Well,
I'm
let me
sorry
just-
it's going to cost us so much, but
So let me just ask another question that has to do with finance. After we spend 140,000, or after we budgeted 140,000, then the next step would be to either get the $60,000 extra pump or to buy the Vector truck. Is that correct? For $50,000.
Yeah, so we're thinking about that as as soon as possible. And I want to be clear, there is going to be a third step, and that is going to be the most expensive step. We haven't talked about this yet, and that is the rehabilitation of the pump station.
How much is that going to be?
Yeah.
That's going to be clearly around $1 million.
Yeah.
So
That's,
we're talking about
we've done,
right now spending funds so that we can bridge the next months, design an appropriate pump station, and construct it. Pippin.
yeah, thank you. Right now, the construction costs at pump stations are have really been going up at an alarming rate. Our sewer pipeline projects have been pretty aggressively priced, very well priced, below estimates. But because of the supply chain issues, because of the cost of stainless steel, it started in the last administration when there was comments from the top of Washington about China. The stainless steel prices were changing 300% between noon and night. So we're looking at before the current COVID problem, prices were already spiking in the electrical industry. Now with the delivery time where it's $20,000 a container rather than $2,000 a container to get stuff, shipped here, or we send it air freight, that's it's weeks and weeks out to get, like the portable pump we mentioned, it's 30 weeks from one manufacturer and 20 weeks from the other manufacturer. It's just amazing. And so we have done several pump stations of similar size to this recently. Generally, the districts have been hoping to spend under $1 million. We have an advantage here slightly because I believe we're hoping that we'll be able to save the concrete structure, the underground structure. It is old, but I think we can resurface it and save it. We won't know 100% till we dig it up, and take it completely offline, but that will save us a lot of money. But in a recent station job that we did last year, for one that comes to mind, where we had to replace the wet well also, it was $1.4 million for a similar size station. So, and we've had about 5 bids coming in like this. So I think it's fair to our estimate going into this is 950 to 1.2 million. The panel portion of it, the electrical panel portion, will probably be around 250,000. We could save money by rebuilding our existing electrical panel and adding a jockey panel to it. That would be one way to economize, and use some of the money we pay in this emergency response with Calcon that might be forward lasting. But that panel will probably only last another 3 to 5 years. So one thing to keep in mind is we might save $100,000 now, but it might cost us $250,000 more in 5 years. So we can look at those options when we come back with a project proposal in some weeks for you guys to look at. But
so if I understand this correctly, in view of the delivery times, even for that Vector truck, you're not asking us for $140,000. You're asking us now in order to receive that equipment soon and on time.
We're
You're
gonna-
asking us now to spend 140,000 plus either 60 or 150, depending on whether we buy an additional pump or whether we buy the vector truck. So you're not asking us for 140, you're asking us for 200,000 or 290,000.
We're asking for 140. We believe that by the first meeting in January, we get clarity on the pump or vector trailer and would come back at that meeting.
I see. Okay,
I think to Peter's point, it's not a one-time ask. You have a phased proposal, which would be 140 now to take care of the emergent situation. Another similar amount or maybe less to do a bridging action to get us to the third thing, which is the pump station rebuild, which is it's at the end of its useful life. It's had 40 years at that pump station. That's a pretty good run. Time to rebuild it. The only thing that should, I think, maybe get under our skin a little bit is that we had to find out the hard way that the pump station was in this condition. But we have how many pump stations?
Around 13.
Yeah, 13 major ones.
Yeah, in the game of numbers, you can stay on top of the status of all of them, but even so, there's still some probability just from the numbers that you're going to run into a situation. So this is what we're signed up for, and keeping that infrastructure up to date. The stuff that's out of sight doesn't need to be out of mind, and I'm grateful that we've got people who can come in and jump on it. Clemens and Tim, I do want to, and Pittman, I want to thank everybody for getting in there. And I know Tim, the SAM crew worked really long, hard hours in multiple locations, and we don't take you guys for granted. We really appreciate that when when it starts to overflow, you folks are on the job, and we appreciate that. And it's never the pleasant weather when this is going on either. So I don't know if that's said publicly loud enough, but we'll say thank you this time and hopefully every time that it's called for. Rick, and then Catherine.
Two quick comments. One, I always like to repeat this, especially for our community, but for the whole coast side. You should know that the money spent on the Half Moon Bay lawsuit for this community would more than cover this entire project, with all of the foreseeable extra expenses could be put in the ground rather than throwing it away in this lawsuit. Second, if we can, I would assume we could construe this as infrastructure enhancement. There's tons and tons of money out there we could put in, ask for grants to upgrade our pump stations rather than us just paying for it. California's got money, the US has money. Why not go after some of that? Because that's what we're doing. They talk about repairing, replacing old architecture, pipes, all that stuff, infrastructure. This is what the money is meant for, not just bridges. I think we should go after grants and money for this too. Why should we pay for it when the whole United States is working on this right now? That's it.
Right.
Do we
Well,
now need- do we now need a motion to approve a budget of $140,000 for immediate repairs?
Yep.
Hang on, Peter. We had Catherine with a comment.
thank you. I agree with Rick. There are, I'm annoyed, and I agree with Scott. I'm very upset that we didn't get the report from the company. And I think in our future notes, we need to put sort of a red mark by them saying doesn't work in a timely fashion, doesn't play well with others. And maybe we can get this if there's some kind of storm or something, but I would like to see for the January meeting, a fairly complete bullet points and schematic of the options and the monies. We're going to have to explain this to our public, and I want it to be very simply put. It also tells me that maybe we need to look at raising our connection fees. Something Greg Diegas has brought up is if our new development causes us to have these problems, maybe it should be paying more for the future for the problems that it causes. And so hopefully we can tackle that in the future in any event. So I'll make the motion for $140,000 for the beginning steps of this entire project, which sounds like it's going to be up over about $1,200,000 by the time we factor it all in. That's a lot of money, but we don't have a choice.
Could you
I like-
restate the motion so we're nice and clear?
I like this motion to cover only 140,000, not 1.5 million or 2 million. No.
Catherine, if you could restate your motion, please.
What I said was for 140,000, realizing it is only a small portion of what will be $1.2 million.
Yes.
And I think we need to be dealing with the entire number, not trying to piecemeal this. Because the public needs to know what things like a sewer system cost and why we need their money. So my motion is to approve the $140,000 for the emergency work. And then we will discuss this further in January with a complete outline of all the steps.
Tracy, that was about 500 words. Did you get that?
Yes.
So I understand the motion is for an amount not to exceed $140,000 for the emergency work.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Catherine, a second from Peter. And I'll just throw in my comment. Thank you for so rapidly jumping on the situation and considering options and bringing us what is clearly had some thought go into not just a knee-jerk response, but a thoughtful response that looks, it's got the hallmarks of thinking this through to try to find a best way forward. And I appreciate the obvious engineering thought that has gone into this, and I know that it involves participation from several people. So that's good. Any further discussion before we take the vote?
Nope.
I didn't call for public comment, so let me do that now. Any public comment on this issue? Okay. Tracy, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
All right. The motion approving this is approving the amount not to exceed 140,000. Clemens, at the start of this, you had talked about a resolution. Do you have what you need to be able to spend this money? I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Christine, I think we have enough that allows us to put a resolution together after the fact and get it signed so that this is properly documented.
So I will, as president, restate that what we just voted on was approval of a resolution approving up to $140,000 for this emergency work. Christine, does that fit your understanding?
Yes, that fits. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, we have other new business. New business 1, review and possible action concerning receipt of fiscal year 2020-2021 audit.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. We've received the audit, the last audit, And I wanted to thank Ahmad, and who's going to present the audit tonight, and also Peter, who's on the phone tonight, for patiently waiting. After Ahmad presents it, the board has an opportunity to ask questions. After review of the audit, the board should acknowledge the receipt and file it with the county, state, and Standard & Poor's. We're going to send one to iBank and Chase Bank. So the recommendation is to acknowledge the receipt of the annual audit for the period ending June 30, 2021. Thanks. Ahmad.
Clemens, thank you. Good evening, members of the governing board. This is the annual financial report for the Montara Water and Sanitary District. The scope of the audit is to ensure that the financial statements are fairly stated. It is basically an affirmation of the information that was presented to you previously by management. We come in after the fact and we perform audit procedures to ensure that these numbers that are reported in these financial statements are fairly stated. We split the audit into two phases, the interim phase and the final phase. The interim phase is a phase in which we take a look at the controls. We look at the manner that you process receipts, disbursements, and payroll. We wait for management to close the books, and then we come in after the fact and we confirm the amounts that are reported in the financial statements. We confirm your cash, we confirm your property taxes. We do analytical procedures on various accounts that are reported on the financial statements. We work with management on issuing the report that is in compliance with the reporting requirements. They call them government accounting standard boards. That dictates how these amounts are supposed to be reported on the financial statements. And then at the end, we will report to you the opinion on the financial statements. And I'm pleased to let you know that we issued a clean opinion, meaning that these financial statements are fairly stated. We encountered no difficulties with respect to the financial statements. And again, they are basically an affirmation of the financial information that was previously presented to you by the district. It's just that we come in after the fact to confirm these numbers. And with that, that's pretty much the scope of the audit, and I will be more than happy to take any questions.
Ahmad, in the audit, a reference is made to a sewer service charge rate increase of approximately 17%. I want you to know that that must be wrong, because the sewage rate increase is 9% a year, not 17.
Okay. Okay, we will make the change accordingly.
Thank you. I had asked another number of questions that mainly deal with an explanation of the numbers that we see, but those details we can leave to Peter Medina, and I thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
So what Peter's talking about, we are about to issue our year-end finance report, so that should be ready by the next meeting, or at least in January, one of the next meetings, and be presented by Peter Medina, and that's when we can answer those questions best.
Right.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments? Okay.
No, it sounds like we have a clean audit, nothing to worry about, no management potential options. It sounds like we're running a good, clean district. Thank you to Clemens and Peter Medina and Jim on the finance committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, here. It's good work. And thank you not only for your work, but that's a fine explanation of the kind of work that you do in the audit. I think that's the most comprehensive overview I've heard in the presentation of many audits. So very clear and concise, but also very informative. Well, thank you for working with our staff to get us this work done. All right. Well, with no other questions, let's then go on to review and possible action concerning owner authorization agreement with AT&T.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So we previously reported that.
Do we need to accept the audit officially, you said?
I think so.
It's a draft.
No,
Is it going to be amended?
I think we can correct this one change after the fact, but probably best if the board acknowledges the receipt at least by motion.
So move.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to acknowledge receipt of the annual audit. Can we have a roll call vote, please, Tracy?
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Loman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Okay. Voted 5-0, the motion carries. Now let's go to talk about review and possible action concerning owner authorization agreement with AT&T.
Okay, so we previously reported that AT&T is interested in establishing a new cell site up at our Alta Vista tanks. And that's going to be around 650 square feet that they would like to essentially rent from us. And so we want to make sure that AT&T is responsible for all the permitting costs, the procedures, of going through all the procedures. So they are willing to do this and are looking at starting this. And so we suggested an owner authorization agreement. And that is really a document that allows AT&T to approach all the jurisdictions, San Mateo County, if needed, the Coastal Commission, to submit drawings for zoning and planning approval for the planning agencies. If then AT&T gets zoning approval, they will proceed with the full construction drawings for our approval. So all of this would then come to our board first, and essentially to get everybody in line about what is being built. So the agreement really is there to allow them to access the site. Of course, we will be notified, perform certain tests, a soil test, for example, other surveys, analysis that they have to do to essentially wrap their mind around if this is working for them or not. That is all at AT&T's sole cost and expense. AT&T is going to be carrying insurance and protect us from their activities relating to these assessments. And if all of this succeeds, we would then really enter negotiations about what this means and come forward with an agreement that, of course, would be reviewed by our council first and hopefully then approved by this board. So our recommendation is to adopt the resolution of the Montara Water and Sanitary District approving and authorizing the execution of owner authorization agreement at the Alta Vista Tank number 2 site, new singular wireless PCS LLC. And I want to mention that we have Aaron Levinson here, who has helped us navigate through all of this and communicate with AT&T on this. So if there are any questions, I'm certain Aaron is happy to answer them.
Yeah,
And thanks
I have the very first question. Have we an idea of what the yearly fee is going to be, the yearly rent?
That is being, that's being negotiated. Part of it a lot of it really will depend on ultimately what they come up with in their construction drawings, what they could possibly get approved from the county. But, and Clemens, correct me if I'm wrong, I think initially based on the sketches that we received from them, they're basically zoning drawings. We're looking at a minimum of 4,000 a month is what we proposed. And and I'm probably not going to be recommending anything less than that, even if they come back with changes that are less impactful to your property.
Okay, Rick's hand us up.
Just a quick question. When we talked about this before, we talked about, is it possible to show this to the community, visions of expanded phone coverage, what the new towers would do for Montara? Because that would be a great selling point for everybody, I think, to show how this will actually improve, coverage.
Sure. Yeah, I think that, AT&T could provide propagation reports that would show coverage. Of course, their goal is to provide coverage. That's what they want to do. That's what they're charging for. So, yeah, I think that once they go through the zoning approval process and it looks like, they'll get through the county zoning and so forth. Once it looks like it's going to be approved, then it would make sense for them to provide that, because then, as we step closer to fruition, we still would have a way to go after they get zoning approval, because we still have to get through an agreement. Clemens and I basically rewrote their agreement form to protect the water district. So, there'd be a ways to go even after they get zoning approval. But yeah, I think that they would be able to provide some sort of schematic that would show coverage, up and down Highway 1 and in the community and so forth.
Okay, thanks.
I suspect that's going to be part of what they would intend to use to help justify the permits that they're going to put forward. Look at the public benefit. So what's going to be tough for them is just how tall can they make this thing, because it's on a ridge line and it's in the coastal zone, and so it's going to be some give and take on that. And their coverage map, I can assure you, is going to change depending on how tall that tower is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So if I understand correctly, I'm sorry, Catherine, I jumped in ahead of you. Catherine?
No, I put my hand up when you were just starting, so it's fine. Why don't you finish?
Okay. So if I just want to restate and make sure I'm understanding. So this would be all of the planning work. We'd be giving them permission to do planning work for our property, but for their project. They would go through the normal application process with the county, maybe the coastal commission, and that would involve the project description, the drawings, the imaginings of what it looks like. I forget what you call those. But there would be no actual construction, but they would be attempting to obtain permits. Once they got to that point, they would not begin construction without first having an agreement with us for what it would mean to break ground on that and then occupy that property. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. That's correct.
So by that point, we would have a very clear picture of what they would be permitted to build. And then the community along the way would have an idea of what they're talking about and have the opportunity to participate in the permitting process.
Yeah, I think as part of the permitting process, they would have to notify the public and hold community meetings. And by the way, the water district, the MWSD position, I suggest, is in line with the community. You're just as concerned as the community in the safety and efficacy, the design, the minimizing the impact to your property, minimizing the impact to the aesthetics as much as can be, given it's a cell site. But your interests are aligned with the community, and so AT&T has to demonstrate to both you and the community of the, efficacy and the sense of the design and the effectiveness of the coverage and so forth.
All right, real good. Okay, Catherine.
I have been in long discussions with T-Mobile. And tonight, I just realized our Sprint site is going to become a T-Mobile site.
Mhm.
Have we changed that contract? Do we have the ability to change that contract? Because I think we had a phrase a long time ago when I negotiated with Sprint, there was a clause in there that it needed, I believe the lease needed to be updated if the company changed ownership. So we might want to look at that.
That's actually my recommendation would be so there's a couple of things that could happen with a Sprint site. One of which is that it converts to T-Mobile since T-Mobile acquired Sprint. And then the other option would be that T-Mobile/Sprint assigns the site to Dish. Dish is the fourth carrier, new entrant to the market. The SEC, when they approved the acquisition of Sprint by T-Mobile, required a certain number of sites be transferred to a fourth carrier that is now Dish. But in the event of an assignment, or at least a requested assignment from Sprint to T-Mobile, that you enter into a new agreement with T-Mobile, updating the provisions, because also what's going to happen is T-Mobile is going to upgrade the site to 5G. And 5G, there's implications involved with that you all would need to be protected from, that is different from 4G and 3G and LTE and so forth. So all of that has to be captured into a new agreement form. So yeah, Sprint and T-Mobile would love it if you just said, yeah, sure, we'll agree to assign it, keep this old contract in place, and they go on their merry way. But no, it's really, the Sprint equipment's going to go away, and it's going to be replaced by T-Mobile 5G, and it's really, in a sense, a new site, and it should be covered in a new agreement. At least that's
Exactly.
my suggestion.
With more rent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
As you heard, we have some major expenses coming up. We've got to
I
cover
was thinking
somehow.
of that. I was listening to that and thinking, okay, we have to really step up this income.
That's it.
And of course, the
Aaron,
coverage to the community.
Just a financial question. Is your fee based on the rental income that we negotiate?
Correct. And so in a situation, I'll just say, in terms of like a Sprint assignment and a new agreement with T-Mobile, I would charge only the difference between whatever rent you're getting now from Sprint and whatever the new rent is from T-Mobile. I would only charge you the difference, my fee based on the difference in that scenario. And same with, well, in AT&T, that's a new build, so that it doesn't really apply to AT&T. So AT&T, my fee is just based on the amount that I would negotiate for you all.
Okay.
My goal is, well, one of my goals is you don't pay me out of pocket. You pay me from the revenue that I help you produce.
I like that model.
All right, Kimberly Williams.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Just about the proposed tower, I just have a few questions. You talked about the strength of the tower, and I think that might be of concern to some people, especially those closer to the tower. Questions I would have would be about the height that you mentioned, whether it would impede access to trails, and if it's a larger footprint, and how that would be maintenanced, and whether that would also incur a larger footprint to the tower. And then any chemicals, things used in the maintenance of the tower over time that could migrate into the water and the soil. So those are things that I would be interested to know about at this meeting or at a future meeting. Thanks.
Sure. Sure. No, good questions all. And really, those are great questions for AT&T, but I can just tell you that, we're looking at all of those issues. We want AT&T to get the coverage they need, but, at the minimal heights that they need. They will not exceed the, height restrictions for that area. They are aware of those height restrictions. In terms of access to trails, there really shouldn't be an impact. I mean, part of what's in the contract, or what we've already put in the contract, is that they cannot impact access to the MWSD site, as well, including the trails that go up beyond that water tank. So the way they've designed their site, that really shouldn't be an issue. And if it is during construction, if it were to happen, which we would, of course, try to prevent as best we could, but if there were a situation just during the construction process that there's a provision where they have to move their truck out of the way or what have you, within a certain very short time frame. So that's how that access situation is handled. As far as chemicals, the only potential, and I really, we should let AT&T speak to all of these things, and especially chemicals. They use backup batteries, and they're sealed batteries, and they're sealed and encased in a cabinet. So, and it's an all-weather cabinet. That's the only chemicals. And again, they should really further address this, but those are the only chemicals that they use at these sites. And they've, as far as I know, I have not heard of any of these battery acids or whatnot, leaching out of or leaking or what have you. They monitor them closely because they need those batteries to operate during a time of a power outage. So they're there for emergency power purposes. So they're checked regularly at the site. So, but AT&T should, can further address how they can keep the environment safe when they use these batteries. I hope I've answered your questions. Let me know if not.
Okay, do we have any further questions? The recommended action is to approve a resolution approving and authorizing execution of the owner authorization agreement.
So moved.
Seconded.
So motion from Catherine, second from Peter. Tracy, if you could do the honors, please.
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Sure.
That's a by 5-0, the motion for the resolution is adopted. So, Catherine, you really threw me off there. Let's go to
So
new
many
business
ways
item.
to say yes.
New business 3, review and possible action concerning a memorandum of understanding with the County of San Mateo for edible food recovery.
You're on the wrong agenda, Scott.
That was
Sorry,
that was
sorry.
last week.
last week.
2 weeks ago.
We're
Oh,
done.
that's interesting.
Well, yeah, because I thought I saw that too.
No, that's on the Clemens. That's the agenda that is at the front of the packet.
Oh,
It is posted.
okay.
Okay, the posted agenda has new business 3 big wave development update. So good. I'm glad the posted one was right. And
Posted
we'll
it.
work-
Okay.
We'll work with that.
Why was you? I was going on the one at the front of the agenda.
I'm like, did we have something further? Yeah. Anyway, so I was just feeling good about explaining what MOU meant, but
All right.
let's
Big
talk
Wave,
about Big Wave.
Yeah, Big Wave. So I want to thank Jim Harvey here for regularly asking questions about this development. And I think it is really important. I mean, it made me aware that I think it's really important that the board once in a while hears about really the largest development that I think this district has seen so far. Last we spoke about this was really with the acceptance of the mainline extension. That was not too long ago. But I've asked Tanya from SRT, who's helping us navigate through this, to put a little bit of a little report about where we are, what we currently know, where this is going, and present it tonight. So Tanya.
Thank you, Clemens. Mr. President, members of the board, we're happy to report what we know and what is happening with the Big Wave development. As you're aware, 2 months ago, you approved accepting the 12-inch 58 linear foot main into the district system. The main is currently dormant. It's not operational yet, but it has been inspected by the district and found acceptable and presented to the board, which the board accepted it as well. The next steps in the development are the Big Wave has 7 lots. And as you know, each of them, as you may recall, each of them will have an associated building with it. And the development is going in some phases. So the next step in the development, as far as we understand right now, is the wellness center, and which is the crown accomplishment of Big Wave. They've been trying to get that done a long time. And currently, also, they started looking at some commercial developments. We only have very preliminary information. The approval, they're going through approvals with the county, and the district does not act. We do not review anything until the county referral is received, and the applicant submits an application, a bona fide application with the fees paid, so we can start reviewing each building separately. So what we're doing right now is we're reviewing the distribution pipelines, the proposed distribution pipelines, which will also be built by Big Wave and then turned over to the district inside the property, between the lots. For that construction, Big Wave is requesting permission to utilize the new 12-inch pipeline. And that would be, of course, they will pay for the water for construction purposes. So we will be discussing that shortly. The actual applications we have not yet seen. Just to remind the board, you don't see this in front of you very often, but our application requires the applicant to tell us the water usage, the fixtures, fixture counts, all of that, and submit the plans. So until we have the plans and the fixture count, unit counts, we cannot size the meters, because that would be our next step. Once we get the application fees and the application itself and all the materials that are required for the application, we will then start reviewing, commenting. Tim Monahan in my office is working closely with their project manager, Drew, on assisting currently, but we are only reviewing the distribution pipelines. Once we get the applications for the new buildings, we will start reviewing them one by one and bring them to the board as required. So far, there are several options there. Of course, we how many units inside the building? Is it one unit? Is it one building, 1 meter? So all these things we will be considering and carefully reviewing. The pipeline, just to remind you, the 12-inch pipeline was built to provide fire flow, to ensure fire flow to the big wave development, to the entire development. So that's been done. And the fire marshal is now allowing them to start developing other parcels. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. It's a somewhat slow movement, but we're expecting the more activity on this project soon. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Sounds good.
I only have a question to Pippin regarding the sewer connections. Are the sewer connections there in place already?
This is not in the district sewer.
Sewer connection will be provided by Granada Community Services District.
Or just water.
Just water. Water and fire protection.
Sounds good.
To Tanya, thank you very much.
Of course.
We just wondering what was the status of Big Wave. We hadn't heard any. Clemens is keeping us informed, and I appreciate your helping out, doing that, taking care of this for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have any other questions? If not, well, my thanks as well, Tanya. And thank you not just for the report, but on helping oversee all this work and making sure that what's added to the system is added appropriately. That's something that everybody should be concerned about, and we've got the comfort knowing that you're the one guiding this work. So
thank you.
Let's turn to reports then.
I would like to work with Tanya and Peter on looking at what our connection costs are, and maybe getting this before we assess the connection costs for the water, get an assessment of the pumps to see what their anticipated lifespan is, and if the loads that are going to be put on them by this development need to be added into the connection costs.
I agree.
You're talking about the sewer pumps?
Nope, the water pumps.
Water pumps. And water connections fee.
Yes, yes. Since we don't do sewer for Big Wave, that's Granada's problem. And they've got some big problems with that because their pipes are undersized out there, but
understand. Yes.
I want to make sure that given what just happened with our sewer pump, that we aren't, I know our water pumps are newer, but I just think it's good insurance to take a look at this.
Absolutely. I think, as Tanya mentioned, we are our connection fees are really based on the number of fixture units and flow requirements. So and a number of other factors. So I think once we have that information from Big Wave, we can really intelligently talk about it. I don't think we really have the information to have that discussion at this time.
Right. No, it was just a future agenda item.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Let's turn to reports. Sewer Authority Midco side.
I can't speak to that. I haven't been following their agenda, unfortunately.
Well, there were really only two items. One was accepting the SAM, financial status, which looked really good.
Do we have an audit yet?
Sorry?
Did we receive their audit yet? Their audit report?
For SAM?
I don't think it was, you at the financial meeting, you may have seen the audit there, Catherine.
Wait a minute, are we back, are we talking about Sam or MCC?
Sam,
Yeah.
Sam,
Okay, the Finance Committee had a meeting today to receive the draft audit. We're going to be having a special meeting for the board to approve it. I will say that George Keeshan and George and Peter Medina, and frankly, everybody who puts pencil to paper at SAM has done a phenomenal job, and we got a fabulous audit. And Keeshan wants to have the audit adopted by the board prior to December 31. He's going for what used to be called a CAFR, but it's now called an ACFR, and I cannot tell you what those letters mean. I should have written them down. But essentially, if you get it, it is the highest level of annual report, and it would have taken Sam in 3 years from miserable audits to an all-star audit.
congratulations.
The auditor had just the highest praise for Keeshan and George and Peter. He was just so pleased. The last time Sam had a CFR, an CAFR, now an ACFR, award was in 2011. And essentially what it does is it takes a look at your finances for the past 10 years. It will provide a whole lot more transparency. And frankly, Peter Medina was saying, I don't think we really want to do this. It's going to be some work and we've got other things to do. And Keeshan and George pushed for it, and they want to be able to have a meeting to approve it so it can be filed. It has to be filed before December 31. There was some interesting discussion about getting a glossary, something I've been pushing for to go. Oh, Keeshan's listening to our meeting. He says it's the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report is the ACFR. Thank you, Keeshan.
I knew that.
Yeah, we all did. There is no management letter for the first time in 3 years. That's what a good job this team has been doing. But there was a long discussion about contributed capital, whether capital equals infrastructure, but not necessarily new infrastructure. And so at one point, capital assessments don't equal contributed capital, but capital contributions equal operating costs. And so we've got to get this sorted so we can all know what we're talking about in true accounting terms. One of the problems that Sam has had for as long as I've been paying attention to it is the meanings that are attributed to common words, which may not be the same meaning attributed to the same word in other circumstances. So, and I think that has caused some of the problems. And so if you're interested, I suggest the meeting was recorded. It was less than an hour, so I suggest listening to it. In short, the auditor said this was a remarkable change from the past. And so Sam has come a long ways in the last few years, and it has a remarkable team. The special meeting is going to be on Wednesday, December 29th. Rick, this is for your calendar at 7 p.m.
I've already said yes.
Would you do me a favor, Catherine, and send me a copy of the audit?
I would be happy to. And I suggest you also watch the finance meeting.
Has it been received by the board or is this still a draft?
It's being received by the board on August 29th. But the draft was a public meeting, so I believe, Christine, I can send a copy of the draft.
And the finance committee meeting that was
Yes.
presented?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that was a public meeting.
It
correct?
was a public meeting.
The other SAM items were, we got a financial update that showed pretty much normal expenses and income with lots of explanations. A lot of things are paid up front, so it looks like we're way out of whack, but as the quarters go by, those will like normalize. The big item, of course, was the, I guess we'll call it the rewrite or the creation of these new rules for the domestic waste program. Guidelines for the non-domestic waste program that's been going on. That could take an hour or so to go over. We made all of our comments per all of our prior discussions about, we feel you shouldn't be rewriting the JPA through ordinances. If they create a new ordinance, they only need a majority vote, whereas a JPA change would require unanimous. That will be going on. They wanted to rush something through December 20th. We pushed back and said no. So that will open up again in January. We've made our statement several times that, you know, if the JPA says Sam will issue the permits, that sounds pretty clear to us. They're trying to work around that somehow. Much more will happen in January, and there's lots of repercussions that would take way too long to discuss all tonight, I don't think. So that is moving along. So
I'd like to add that if any of you have any ideas on this, please give Christine and or Clemens a note on what your feelings are on this. Maybe we can have, if our first January meeting is before the SAM board meeting, we could have this as an agenda item to get a straw poll on the board.
There are a lot of legal implications from this, which we'll probably be discussing in closed sessions, because this could be really significant. So,
but I think it's important for not only the board, but for the folks who watch this meeting, and to let the board know what your feelings are on the stridency of protecting the JPA as written and not letting it get nitpicked away. And number two, on making sure that we are doing everything legally possible to protect the sand plant and the coastal environment from businesses that pollute.
So,
even if we do drink or use their products.
So I think that's a quick overview for Sam. So,
all right, well, good. Let's go to the Mid-Coast Community Councils. Can anyone speak to that?
Cannot.
Where's Greg when we need him?
Maybe next door.
Maybe next door.
CSDA report.
There is no meeting until about February. They're trying to reorganize all their email lists and things like that because notifications weren't getting out, but hopefully that'll all be cleared up. So.
Okay, let's see, LAFCO report.
Do have a couple interesting things. I've attended a couple Cal LAFCO and I guess CSDA and special districts meetings. Several interesting things from LAFCO I found out because they're mostly water drought concerned. One of the interesting things from the first lecture was some farmers are determining that it's more cost effective for them to sell their water than actually farm. That's not good for farming. What that leads to, which is another interesting discussion, is that districts or people are hauling water out of one water district into another water district without permission from anybody, any LAFCO. And people are saying, wait a minute, that's a strange situation when you're just moving water between districts without telling anybody. So that's going to come up. The other interesting thing from that discussion was they had the board president, I guess you would say, of all LAFCOs or special district associations in that. And I asked her about our concerns about the pressure to merge water districts. And she said, as far as she understands, they are only looking at districts that have a problem. This being wells are running dry, everything is going wrong. That's their only application of that kind of thing. So that made me feel a little better because I've always been concerned about merging water districts for some reason. But she said, as far as she understands, that, you know, they wouldn't even be considering looking at us on that. So there was another item, but that's probably enough for now. And if I think of it later, I'll tell you. So.
Okay, let's see, attorney's report,
No report.
director's reports,
Nothing
general
more.
manager's report.
No report.
Okay, well, this is the future agendas. Anyone want to raise their hand? Not hearing anything. We are going to take a recess. I'm going to thank all the members of the public for coming and participating and being part of what makes this community good and well, great. And we are going to reconvene in closed session to hear a few things, and I'm going to go through the list because it's a little longer than usual.
Does Tim have his hand up?
Oh no, Tim was waving goodbye.
Oh,
Right, Tim.
I have my hand up. If that, I don't have a raised hand function apparently on my computer here screen.
Okay,
so
Christine.
I apologize. Thank you. I just want to remind the president that there is an item on the closed session agenda that Director Lohman will be recusing himself from due to a conflict of interest because of the location of his property to the property that's listed on the agenda, and he will leave the meeting electronically and not participate either by audio or video. Do I have that correct, Director Lohman?
With all due regrets that I will not be able to attend that session.
Because Rick is always looking to spend more time with us in board meeting.
Lucky guy.
Okay,
Thank you. Sorry for
If
the
anybody wants to move near my property where they can also be exempted, we have some space maybe.
all right. Okay, we will be hearing in closed session conference legal counsel on existing litigation where Half Moon Bay is helping us all spend money that we don't need to spend because they're suing us all over a long running partnership of more than 45 years of working together. Anticipated litigation, one potential case, another two cases of potential anticipated litigation. Conference with real property negotiators. On this one, the property is 771 Rivera Road in Montara, California. The agency negotiators are the district general manager and the district general counsel. And negotiating with Coast Wholesale Florists, a corporation / Miller Harvest Ranch, and it's under negotiation, is price in terms of payment. Further, we have an item on public employee performance evaluation for the general manager and conference with labor negotiators for the unrepresented employee general manager. If we take any action that needs to be reported out, we'll do so when we come out of closed session, and make sure that's in the minutes as well. With Tim, you're still here. I thought you were saying goodbye. Did you have any comments?
I just wanted to say that me personally, I appreciate the support that we get from Montara and from the board, and I want to wish you all a happy holidays and looking forward, obviously, to working with you in the future. So with that, I will let you get on to your closed session. Good night, all.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Tim.
Have a
Good
good
night.
holiday. Thank you.